Hello, stranger, welcome to my novel. Your attention and roast are my driving force for writing. I will satisfy your interests and dedicate an interesting work to you. Let's deposit our brains first and step into the interesting world of comprehensive novels together. Preface. One day, Xia-Qi was fooled by an unreliable system and said, "Do you want to go to a world full of cute elves, orcs, swords, and magic called Terra?" Then, unaware of the seriousness of the situation, Xia-Qi became confused to the point of 40k Warhammer. Upon seeing the can, Xia-Qi immediately sweated profusely and said, "It's actually Holy Terra." In short, Xia-Qi, who had worked hard in the 40k world of Warhammer and the second creation Warhammer, finally took a bucket and ran to the real world to live a peaceful daily life. The main theme of the novel is light-hearted and enjoyable. Like Rick and Morty, they will try their best to handle the regrets and blades of anime and games as well as possible. At present, the world has emerged, including Goblin Killer, Tokyo Ghoul, Cutting Red Eyes, Lonely Rock, Seeing Classmates in Ancient Times, Campus Memoir, Cyberpunk Fringe Walker, 2077, Visible Girls, Voice Shape, Neo Mechanical Era, Strange Life, Painting the Legend of the Sky Gang in the Jianghu, Black Bullets, Buried Fulian, Different Worlds from Scratch, Genshin Impact, Biochemistry. The world will have a future. Chapter 01. The Goblin Killer and the Fierce Man from the Interstellar Empire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Brain Collection Site. In the year 20XX of a certain world, the specific location is unknown, and in a technologically advanced world, an interesting life was born in this peaceful universe. The individual has been tempered by a peaceful society and has become dilapidated. As a result, they are busy every day like Paru, but they can still live a peaceful life. But this interesting soul will not slowly disappear into history like ordinary Paris. On the contrary, some great and mysterious beings have noticed this interesting soul. But in order to set this trap, the great existence decided to use the easiest trick to trick this young man. Unknown existence. If you let a lovely beautiful girl come out on horseback, you will surely be able to catch her with your hands and achieve success. This guy is much more difficult to deceive than ordinary college students, and he is also very cunning. He belongs to the fun people we appreciate. So the unknown existence found a girl who was most likely to attract his attention according to the anime wives that the boy liked, and gave a brief explanation to let her go. So, this poor boy named Xia-Qi, his calm daily life, was about to leave him. But the boy didn't know. On the contrary, in order to enjoy the comic exhibition, I worked hard to earn a small amount of money and even prepared to buy a unique and interesting figurine. One day, holding the Warhammer version, Shark Gula's Xia-Qi was stopped by a strange and beautiful girl dressed in black silk, who looked very much like Kiana Katrina. "This handsome young man, do you want to go to the Terra continent, where there are cute beast women? You can experience many interesting things." "Alright." Xia-Qi, unaware of the dangers of society, was so confused that she was deceived by the sweet appearance of the young girl, and then stepped into a never-ending halo. The girl then looked at Xia-Qi's anime manual. This manual should be his favorite Terra world, and the system will follow this. At the same time, the system mother directly uses the image recognition function to send Xia-Qi to the most similar place division line. "Ordinary people dressed in strange clothes, what have you been spying on and longing for all along?" A tall and sturdy can asked a question as it interacted day after day, towering like a mountain peak. Xia-Qi, who was shrouded in shadows, sneaky, and sweating profusely, neglected his work all day, searching for food in the trash can. He spoke poorly and was afraid of being judged as wet/piece, pure meat without any modification, most suitable for modification. He became silent and devout, praying to the emperor every day. How loyal. Xia-Qi. As for his attitude towards the college entrance examination. "Kind and great emperor, I want to go home." Followed by various praises. Camping on the street outside the emperor's temple, Xia-Qi, penniless, trembled and his face turned to ashes. I want the white-haired beast-eared lowly, I want revenge. I want the beautiful little sister. You lascivious fanatic. Where can you escape? Several judges noticed Xia Qi, thinking of some dangerous ideas that could easily be noticed by evil gods, and immediately wanted to judge this weak and uncontrollable heretic. But Xia Qi, who was extremely lucky, skillfully dodged the explosive gun and fled into the temple, tightly hugging the emperor's leg and kissing. The pagan Xia Qi, who was almost dragged to target, was mercifully cleared by the emperor, and then, crying and crying, was personally escorted and sent to exile by the judge Mississippi. What are you doing, my goodness? After a long journey and finally waking up from the swaying carriage, the strong man in the carriage looked at him and said, "Oh, stranger, you're awake. We're almost on the front line." Just like this, Xia Qi began a relaxed, tense and thrilling subspace teleportation, an enjoyable, bloody and extremely thrilling battlefield, daily, combat, thrilling, life, being watched by the 4 vendors every day. Eating nutritious and healthy food, terrifying high protein, can of parasitic cow ants, has been like this for an unknown amount of time. Until now. Division line introduction to the Goblin Killer world. There is a weak, child-sized green-skinned creature called Goblin, extremely cunning and cruel. Goblins are not closely watched by humans, but they always attack villages and towns. Moreover, they will plunder young girls and destroy crops everywhere. For some unknown reason, adventurers are not interested in Goblin, while new adventurers, especially new ones, are not interested. For these weak and powerless creatures, they usually think that goblins are not enough to be afraid of. After all, it's too easy for a person to easily drive Goblin away with a stick in hand. Every adventurer, to some extent, successfully drove away the weak Goblin when they were young, and the surviving Goblin would master this escape experience. But is it really like this? There are many professional-level adventurers who, due to being too confident and unprepared, directly invade Goblin's lair. Being ambushed by Goblin in a cave that is extremely unfavorable to human vision, one by one solving the problem. Finally, without realizing it, this small team was annihilated by Goblin, who had emerged from an unknown source. Even the surviving female team members became the mother of Goblin's wanton ravages. What awaits them is only a prayer in the dim, damp, and cold underground. Those who do not care about their life or death, a trace of pity from the cold gods. Women who are too weak will be killed by goblins and turned into food, or rather, the gods simply ignored their prayers and cries, and all sacrifices were data on the gods' gambling table. Even if a kind-hearted adventurer discovers them, the women who have been caught by Goblin will only end up doing business. Some may go to so-called churches to serve God for life, and some may even just want to die due to major upheavals. This world is so cruel, either winning or losing, and for some reason, the gods take special care of this ugly creature. On this vast continent, there are countless hidden nests of goblins. All kingdoms are staring at the demon army, and in the dark, evil goblins are slowly breeding. They appear weak everywhere, but in fact, they are fierce and cruel. They are goblins, an extremely cruel, cunning, and dangerous creature. Although the people of this otherworldly continent are aware of goblins' existence, there is no one. Even an adventurer is wary of it. For them, the cost of suppressing Goblin is small, there are many things to do, and it is also meaningless. It is better to go and punish other monsters. As if being blocked by God's common sense, everyone ignored Goblin's danger. New adventurers, on the other hand, often feel too confident and unwilling to seek advice from experienced adventurers, so they think they want to go and fight against Goblin. If nothing unexpected happens, Goblin will always be easily defeated by various foolish carelessness. And the goblins will quietly wait for the next batch of new adventurers coming out of the village. But there is one exception. Except for the Goblin Killer. This unique adventurer is staring intently at the spread of Goblin. He hates Goblin, and his anger towards Goblin has always been a warning to him. But after all, he is just one person, how much can he kill even if he can? And the reproductive ability of goblins is even more evident, as any organism can be used to breed goblins. One day, the goblin assassin will grow old, unable to even wield his knife, and eventually disappear into an unknown cave due to his severe injuries. Wake up, some powerful warriors in a world full of blood and tears. Cosmic Superman, open your eyes and I am Shafulin. Wake up quickly, the surgery was successful, and you have become a girl. In the unknown space tunnel, there was a sound of shotgun loading, and several armored men opened their eyes. Searching for a new world, locked to a different world. Turn on the transfer. Intelligence analysis. This is a world full of swords and magic, with demon kings and warriors. Once again, I would like to remind you that this world is not a 40k empire. What I am saying is true, and this is not the evil conspiracy of the 4 vendors. This is not even a world as frustrating as Warhammer 40k, so you can relax your vigilance by 200%. This system apologizes for the previous fraudulent behavior. Upon closer inspection, the other party impatiently sharpened the steel blade and silently watched the system, without any further words. The body is talking. You are our high-quality customer, and all system benefits are free. Please do not dismantle our company and do not crush the core of my system, Omega. It's better to dismantle it if it's been used by a few people all the time. There's too much talk and so on. Various malice enveloped it, and the system burst into tears. This is the first and last time, said a cold and emotionless voice. Okay, sir, I will prepare information about this world for you immediately. Importing world data. Introduction to data from different worlds. This is the traditional otherworldly magical continent, without any powerful or dangerous presence. You can enjoy the pleasure of slaughtering heretics. With the landing of a very masculine style, it is different from what was worn in this era. A few people dressed in advanced combat armor that has crossed the times and gone through various wars appeared on this continent. One of them took off his helmet and took a deep breath of uncontaminated air. Xia Qi said to his 2 companions, "No problem, it's full of the atmosphere of nature." The male protagonist Xia Qi and his 2 unlucky fellow villagers came to this different world together, 2 men and 1 woman. One of them suffered a serious injury, but their willpower was very strong and they have lived to this day. But even a strong physique cannot stop the evil corruption that extraordinary people can resist. Team Call Channel, it's a different world, and we have escaped the control of evil gods. We are safe now, temporarily. Pay attention to this man, his name is Xia Qi, and he is the male protagonist of this article. He has jet black hair and a healthy Eastern face. His stiff expression occasionally shows a mesmerizing smile, making him a typical joker. But this doesn't seem right no matter what it looks like. I'm curious about what the cave is like. The best way to collect intelligence from other worlds in the world of the savages is to have a real fight with the local indigenous people or monsters. Xia Qi observed the surroundings and immediately noticed an interesting presence. I noticed that the honest locals were getting closer, so try not to disturb them and let us quietly follow up. As for wooden sticks and colorful burlap bags, we don't need them anymore. We're not strange collectors who catch cute girls. Sure you. Ha, Captain is really interesting. Chensi. Hee, it's a bit interesting. A few people hid their armor, and soon a small group of adventurers from other worlds entered Goblin's cave, chatting and laughing. One of them commented, "Without any terrain observation or even intelligence gathering, I stepped into a cave where the situation was completely unclear." Another person also said, "This is a suicide mission, the leader should be given a street light." Xia Qi said, "It doesn't matter. Let's take a look. Anyway, my chainsaw blade is already starving and thirsty." Inside the cave, several new adventurers had no adventurous state at all, instead boasting and talking nonsense. A young man holding a sword said, "Goblin, this low-level demon, can kill as many as you want." A glasses girl who uses magic said, Also, my magic is super powerful. If there are goblins or something, I will use fire magic to eliminate them. A girl who looks very capable of fighting said, of course, if the two of them fools can't solve it, I also have some knowledge of boxing. Is it really okay? Said a young girl wearing a small priest costume with a soft voice. The little priest said, we didn't have any intelligence, so we just came in casually. Others said, don't worry, we are all very strong. Even though we are all newcomers, there must be no problem. It can be seen from this that this is a small team composed entirely of newcomers, exploring Goblin's lair for the first time in their lives. The team is led by a male wielding a long sword and assisted by a female mage holding a staff. Close combat is a beautiful female boxer and a little priest responsible for adding health. A group of 4 people, who had just left the village and had just registered as a new adventurer, took on the task of attacking Goblin. They can say it's the vegetable chicken among the vegetable chickens, very tiger-like. And they think this is the simplest task. The rookie adventure team ignored a strange totem outside the cave and kept delving deep into it. That totem is made up of a sheep skull and some unknown bones, which looks extremely eerie. After going deep into the cave, they stumbled upon a totem again and watched for a while. The dice of their fate have already appeared for judgment. Not noticing another cave nearby, a bright light source flickered past, causing them to overlook the entrance. But he didn't know that Goblin had already started using this unnoticed opening to slowly surround them. Goblin, holding various deadly weapons, quietly surrounded them from behind and revealed evil ridicule. The male swordsman held a torch to illuminate them, while the female boxer and mage, as the healing little priest, were thrown at the end of the team. Male swordsman. I want to be the first to kill all Goblin and become an adventurer to complete the mission. Woohoo. Oh. Let's quickly complete the mission and earn our first bucket of gold in life. Female boxer. Are you a fool? Wait a moment. As soon as she saw that the opponent was running very fast, the female boxer quickly chased after him, but the opponent quickly disappeared like oil on the soles of his feet. The first time he went deep into the cave, the male soldier was extremely excited and even abandoned his team, running even further. More importantly, he also took away the torches that illuminated the team and left the most important auxiliary in the most dangerous area of the team. The other 3 girls, in order to prevent losing sight, after all, if you can't see, you can't find danger, panicked and chased after them. The wizard was still comforting the little priest beside him. This is just a straight path, there won't be any other goblins appearing from elsewhere. The little priest said, I'm a bit scared. Is that really okay? Female boxer. Don't worry, we are very powerful. A few girls quickly quickened their pace and once again passed another totem made of bones. They don't know the totem used by Goblin to distinguish intersections. At the same time, this totem also serves as a reminder to the surrounding goblins and shamans. Suddenly, the goddess official at the end of the team seemed to feel something moving and reminded the mage standing next to him, well, I think I heard something moving from behind. Mage. Relax, maybe it's the sound of the wind blowing into the cave. The other person casually thought it was just the wind blowing through the cave, still numb. At some point, behind them, 5 goblins had quietly blocked their way and were getting closer. A sparse sound was finally heard by the magician at the end of the team, and she quickly turned around. In the faint light, the goblins slowly walked out of the dark cave with a strange smile. They held various inferior and rough weapons, drooling as they watched them emit strange laughter. Faced with such an ugly and disgusting monster, the female mage overcame her fear and sang magic, using magic to pierce through a goblin. But she forgot to sing her magic and it took too long. Although your grades were very good, it was her evaluation from the magic school teacher that she started the spell too slowly. That means she's too slow to activate her skills, and when she's ready to sing the next line of magic. Goblin, however, would not wait for her to launch the next attack before surrounding her and knocking her down. By the way, she pressed down on the female mage's struggling limbs. Goblin snatched the precious wand from her hand and broke it in front of her. She became hysterical and lost her basic rationality, shouting and screaming, greatly affected. The goddess official, who was still standing by, vigorously waved the magic weapon in his hand. The whole person was frightened by Goblin, who was very frightened and attempted to drive away the goblin who was surrounding them. And Goblin seemed to be playful, bouncing and avoiding her subtle attacks, mocking and teasing her. The male swordsman and female boxer who heard their teammates being attacked quickly returned to the team. Unforgivable for daring to harm my companion, Goblin. He yelled and stabbed one goblin to death, then chased after Goblin who deliberately distanced himself, trying to protect his companions. The female boxer wanted to help the swordsman, but the swordsman waved his long sword indiscriminately. Boxer. It's too dangerous, I can't get close. Swordsman. Nonsense, I'm fine alone. She was completely unable to approach the swordsman and almost got attacked. I'm not even sure what the other party is up to, but the increasingly excited swordsman suddenly delves into Goblin and leaves the team. He killed one, and when he was about to chop off the third one, he was extremely excited and waved his sword wildly. In narrow caves, using a long sword is deadly. The sword hit the sturdy rock fiercely, and a huge vibration made his blood-stained hand release the sword. Without weapons, he is just an ordinary villager. When he was surprised, 4 or 5 goblins flew up and controlled him in his shocked and desperate eyes. Subsequently, the evil and cunning goblins restrained his limbs and dismantled him alive. Goblin, with only the strength of a child, can easily solve the problem of an adult male when its quantity reaches a certain scale. The swordsman is torn apart, and the painful and fearful screams resound through the narrow cave. This is a death trap, and they are delicious cakes. In the midst of chaos, the magician was stabbed by Goblin with a highly toxic knife, a rusty knife soaked in unknown viruses and pollutants, a tetanus-enchanted blade. Even though the boxer made a timely move, the blade still pierced through. When you see that only you are left to fight, use your own skills to easily defeat a weak goblin. Under her strong and powerful attack, weak and powerless Goblin collided with the rock wall and died one after another. The boxer attempted to cover them up alone and had the goddess quickly flee with her injured teammates. And the little priest sang miraculous magic in an attempt to delay the life of his teammates. Even if it made her better, it was useless. The female boxer on this side was targeted, and a large goblin easily caught her attack, which was a strong goblin. The female boxer is useless. She only knows leg martial arts, not boxing. The strong man goblin drooled and showed a ferocious smile. No matter how hard the boxer struggled, she couldn't get rid of it. Then the female boxer was caught by the monster and smashed fiercely at the stone, destroying one of her feet, and then the girl lost her resistance. While she was in pain, the other goblins excitedly rushed up and tore at her clothes, waiting for her to be in endless purgatory. And the goddess official desperately wanted to run away with the female mage on her back. Due to physical exhaustion and supporting the unconscious female mage. In an invisible situation, tripped over a stone and collapsed to the ground. And Goblin wouldn't give them any chance. A bright light flashed and the little priest was shot on the shoulder by Goblin. Goblin rushed forward and kicked the goddess official aside, tearing at the unconscious mage's clothes. The other party could do nothing, and her condition did not improve at all. Instead, due to the flow of blood, her vital energy became increasingly weak. God, save us. And several rapidly moving professionals have already heard the system warning. Warning. Abnormal human life data detected, urgent rescue needed. Discovered hostile creatures, recommended annihilation. They ran quickly, like fierce wolves in the darkness, their crimson eyes fixed on everything in the cave. Like the destruction warriors from hell, they move very quietly at high speeds. The leader Xia Qi arrived with his good brothers and decided to launch a rescue mission. How could a small and weak alien dare to treat our fellow race like this? The slaughter has begun. Trial time. The highly efficient advantages of these optical detection glasses from the future world were immediately demonstrated. Despite being a pitch-black and complex cave, they clearly displayed all the targets like playing a game. The pitch-black cave was as bright as day in Xia Qi's eyes. Unlike traditional night vision devices, it is more like a cross-era high-tech. The panicked goddess fell to the ground, showing a frightened expression. And Goblin laughed recklessly. The fate of the new team's demise appeared. Goblin was very excited when he smelled the little priest leaking holy water in fear. The little priest already knew what was waiting for him, and suddenly something invisible approached Goblin quickly from the darkness. A burst of air-breaking sound sounded, and all the goblins raised their heads in confusion to search for the source of the sound. At this moment, a sharp knife pierced through Goblin. Several powerful warriors effortlessly reaped the life of Goblin, with immense power, even beating a goblin deep into the rock wall. Xia Qi's speed was very fast, and he threw a strange little thing next to the girl because Xia Qi recognized her. It's the anime I've watched, the little priest of the goblin killer. Another threw an indestructible energy shield to protect them, only to find that the female mage's condition was not right and drop a bottle of potion. From the armor covered in physical debris, a girl's voice could be heard. Hurry up and use it for treatment. Oola, oola, oola. You guys who snatch people's heads, leave some for me. Then, while speaking, he swung a whining chainsaw and rushed into Goblin's cave to drag away the boxer. After all, with so much commotion among the soldiers, the goblins no longer have the mood to do strange things. EP1-10 Military Special Therapeutic Agent. Specifically designed for special and complex combat environments, soldiers can manufacture it at any time. Commonly known as hand rub, maintaining combat effectiveness while clearing all toxins and damage in the body is a good thing for biological nanomaterials. Female boxer. No. Don't do it. You animals. Help me. The screams of the boxer struggling kept coming from inside the cave. She is still resisting and attempting to protect herself from evil creatures. It just looks even more tempting without clothing to cover it up. System prompt unknown creature detected, scanning cave. There are 15 hostile creatures and 7 humans in front of us. Xia Qi, start fighting. Under the command of Captain Xia Qi, the remaining 2 dispersed towards the target for rescue. Xia Qi muttered to himself, although he has fought Halo Infinite War before, he is now practicing in this new dungeon. But why is the opponent so weak? Greenskin shocked, thinking this way, Xia Qi took a breath and showed a very healthy smile, but no one could see his expression because he was wearing a helmet. Like a destroyer, he showed a strong smile, and the more eerie and terrifying the environment, the more it felt like returning home. After all, the 40K battlefield was much more underworld than this. It's just a dark and damp goblin lair. I have seen something even more terrifying. Notice. The second episode is the expansion package for the male lead Xia Qi, the Happy World Adventure. If you want to watch it, you can watch it. If you don't want to watch it, you can skip it directly. After that, the normal plot will follow. // important notice // But there are many important contents and Easter eggs in the plot, please pay attention to discernment. Chapter 02. Preface. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Background introduction of the male lead. The male protagonist of this article, Xia Qi, has traveled to many worlds, and the 40K Empire is the most impressive country for him. Advanced technology, difficult to understand values, and even describing human life as money, while humanity has been promoting their courage and praise towards this cruel and dangerous universe. Later, Xia Qi was bewitched by an androgynous evil god, and went to the second creation world of the anime type. Compared to the 40K, the Interstellar Empire is full of various cute girls, and it is also a plain empire with a combination of high-tech, magic, and other elements. It is outrageous that every planet greatly preserves the daily lives of the local indigenous people. Perhaps this planet is a cyberpunk world, that planet is a regular everyday city, and there are also ancient worlds. In short, this empire has imperial transportation stations on each planet, and in 12315, it discovered parallel worlds in the universe, as well as the multiverse. The false emperor who embarked on the Great Expedition first connected with a multiverse called C-137. Due to the fact that the first Commander-in-Chief is an arrogant and brainless ruler, he is completely unworthy of being called the Commander-in-Chief by Xia-Qi. And his army is also a mindless puppet, and the so-called warriors are also artificially synthesized, just like Star Wars stormtroopers. Compared to the emperors who embarked on a great expedition for the entire human civilization, this absurd world of second creation is completely useless, with technology but no strategy. As a result, the army clashed with a crazy old man in the garage of an ordinary household. We only achieved cooperation with them after paying a painful price. Refers to being stolen by an elderly person from the other party, even daring to fart even after being beaten. The highest commander was publicly beheaded, and then all high-level officials were trembling and subjected to terrifying interrogation by the old man from soul to brain. Despite being a scientist who talks nonsense while drinking alcohol, he possesses powerful technology and outrageous force. Not to mention that he was carrying a boy dressed in yellow and shouting loudly. The two of them, grandpa and son, fought fiercely against the Imperial army, throwing off their armor. This Type 1 contact war destroyed several planets of the Empire and caused a large number of casualties. The other planets of the Empire were almost turned into food cans by the death machine created by this old man. But a small number of Imperial forces still gained recognition from the elderly. And leave behind a large amount of outdated technology and various diverse and wonderful knowledge. Because he became good friends wearing a pair of pants with a warm-hearted passerby with black hair, male lead Xia-Qi. The new empire was named the Second Empire, inherited by a young female emperor. Although her abilities were not very good, she was still able to benefit the people. It shares a similar charm with a big guy sitting on a golden toilet, but it is also somewhat different because this universe is completely different from the same way of development. As for how Xia-Qi came here, it was because the Second Creation Empire discovered a planet called Blue Star, which is the familiar solar system. It is found that there are various interesting anime cultures and novels among them, and a craze that cannot be extricated appears in the Empire. A kind of interest in watching fun has emerged, randomly selecting some interesting individuals on this planet to give them some systems, and then throwing them into various small worlds to experience. Even worse, the human flesh battery is immersed in a jar, trapped in a virtual world where reality cannot be discovered. From birth to death, it becomes a nutrient solution and continues to supply the next battery. And the experimental subjects with only the brain turned into various interesting simulation experiments, such as opening or incorporating some post-apocalyptic data, and then throwing back the timeline before the apocalypse. They will always be orphans at the beginning, with no memories of the past, only some virtual apocalyptic scenes, very tragic and pitiful, or various strange, brainless scripts of pretending to be pigs and eating tigers in the background. Their joyful and fluctuating emotions can increase the efficiency of power generation by 200%, occasionally stimulating their brains with strange plotlines, and even overclocking power generation greatly improves productivity. They think they are cunning and resort to all means to become the king of the end, but in reality, they are just brains soaking in a jar. When they are about to discover the truth, they brainwash themselves and start over, creating a new plot. As for those who have the best luck and have a true system, they are taken care of by the Empire as a little mascot, and some so-called adventures are set up reasonably. Interesting stories emerge under the fabrication of the Empire. I have chosen a unique existence from it, imbuing him with knowledge of combat and the great ideals of the Empire. The Empire was fortunate but unfortunate to have chosen a living king of hell, Xia Qi, who had just been bewitched by an evil god and had not yet sat on a hot stool at a snack stand in this world. For example, Xia Qi was eating barbecue, nibbling on crayfish, just peeling off its hard shell, and looking at the delicious shrimp filling his whole body. Suddenly, I once again stepped into a terrifying and cruel battlefield similar to 40K. Normally, he would only tragically die on this battlefield like a nameless passerby, like a meat grinder. Even the freshly peeled shrimp couldn't be put into the mouth and was trampled to death by green skin. But something incredible happened. Xia Qi seemed to be possessed by the god of war, calmly wiping his hands and eating the skewers. Grasping the skewers in his hand, he raced against time to put the delicious shrimp into his mouth. And he looked at the green-skinned, fart spirit, across from him, who looked like an orc and looked similar. What a ridiculous mortal, a weak bug. Ha ha ha, I'm thinking, I'll have a great time playing. A green skin spotted a lonely human and ran towards him with a wild laugh. Excited, Green Skin rushed over with a strange gun made of scrap metal. Who knows what unique abilities they possess, but in short, they can become very powerful strange weapons by piecing together a random welding. Just like our crazy Li Huowang. Everything is a conspiracy of the leader of Hongzhong. It is commonly known as my ability to think and achieve what I want. A mortal without any weapons in the eyes of Green Skin is a weak ant. He wants to torture mortals in various ways, and his screams are beautiful music. I think he should be easily killed, but I think it shouldn't be that easy. I don't think the situation is quite right, the other party may be a bit interested. Something's wrong, something's very wrong, I wonder if he might be very strong. The emperor looked at Xia Qi kindly, and this child was found like his precious pathogen. I felt a very annoying aura of a golden tycoon from him. As is well known, there is a fifth of the four evil gods. It seemed as if Xia Qi had underestimated him, even though she only held a few skewers of grilled meat in her hand. But as Xia Qi, who has reincarnated in many dungeon worlds, he can easily use the most primitive fists to break the bones of Green Skin and tear its muscles. Another big handful of crayfish was thrown in front of Green Skin, successfully attracting attention. The intense burning sensation of chili peppers from a certain southern region plunged this unlucky Green Skin into visual stimulation, WAAGH. Xia Qi scooped and shoveled to the back of Green Skin, where there were weapons and equipment. After all, the opponent's recovery ability is simply outrageous, and they can only be defeated with more powerful weapons. There is a soldier's body holding a very advanced laser weapon. A loyal explosive gun will never get stuck, but it will bring you glory. As for the loyal explosive gun and laser gun, they are 40K, Xia Qi picked up a brave soldier's weapon from the ground and successfully dealt with the extremely threatening Green Skin. Even to prevent Green Skin from suddenly pretending to be a corpse, he fired a few shots, but the opponent was still alive and well. In the end, he used strange hand grenades found on the soldier's body to completely eliminate it. As if he was born a warrior, he quickly adapted to the tense and thrilling death grinder here and began to slaughter terrifying unknown creatures. After all, Xia Qi has just returned to this earth from the 40K side, and it has not been more than 10 minutes. Can he not be proficient when he is turned to a battlefield that looks very similar? Gradually approaching the Imperial army with human faces in the melee, after all, none of the other armed forces looked like humans. Afterwards, he accidentally abducted 2 Earth villagers who were still unaware of what had happened, and took them to practice their numbers together. We fought together and joined the Holy Terra Empire, automatically blocking the true 40K universe, with those strange, low, and tempting calls. The 4 evil gods have sent you a friendly request, but Xia Qi refuses to listen to the temptation and blocks brainwashing, and even raises a middle finger to mock them. And the golden tycoon who has been observing Xia Qi's projection shows you a mesmerizing smile. Young boy, would you like to come and sit on this golden chair? You nodded, indicating rejection, and performed a major healing spell to teleport it over. The Emperor snorted comfortably, his body recovered a lot, and he thought you were friendly, while the loyal court guarding the Emperor expressed shock. They want Xia Qi to sit on the golden toilet. But Xia Qi refused their anxious request and promised to find a way to cure the Emperor. At the same time, the golden big guy helped you wipe your butt and erase your traces. The four evil gods were very puzzled because they could never find that interesting human again. Moreover, Xia Qi is not a 40k, but rather a adventurer-like traveler. Compared to two unlucky people, I am even luckier because I can go wherever I want. For example, Xia Qi once landed on a spacecraft called the Ishimura, where several humans were discovered. The other party was preparing to land, but the landing was very hardcore, causing serious damage to the spacecraft. Xia Qi encountered the threat of a zombie variant and fled with an unknown engineer who survived on the ship. There was a strange red object constantly harassing his consciousness on the ship. But the 40k Empire has conducted research on subspaces and various forms of evil corruption. Afterwards, Xia Qi encountered a muscular man in armor, wielding a chainsaw and slaughtering demons in a demon-ridden hell. Strong people are attracted to each other, and Xia Qi became good friends with this silent and muscular man. And together they stepped into hell and eliminated the Black Demon King. At present, Xia Qi, who has sealed most of his power, chooses to travel randomly to a different world in order to reach the anime he has always wanted to go to. Coincidentally, two companions also brought it along. After all, as long as they were free from the cruel imperial battlefield, anywhere was heaven, and there was no place to put military merit medals. They said, it doesn't matter, what if one day we can go back to our own home? Even if we can't go back, it's not bad in places like Earth. The gears of fate have started to turn, and the story belonging to Xia Qi has begun. Ding ding ding. Alright, handsome readers, the preface ends. Chapter 03. A certain adventure team and the man of destruction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the Goblin Cave. Under the medication treatment, the female mage's body is slowly recovering. Nanochemical agents are breaking down toxins and providing vitality. The goddess official was watching her teammates from the side, and soon a bright light shone in from a distance in the cave, accompanied by the metallic sound of armor. An adventurer wearing full armor appeared in her view. This is a man wearing worn-out armor, holding a round short shield and a torch. The man smoking in the helmet appeared. He was commissioned by the front desk lady of the guild to rescue these new adventurers. As soon as he entered, he saw that Goblin had been eliminated and there were various traces of combat. The Goblin killer appeared, holding a torch and walking with heavy and slow steps, following the Goblin trail that had been slaughtered along the way. The Goblin killer found this place and quickly analyzed the traces of various battles around him. Very fast and agile combat power, 3 professional adventurers. Gusha said, possessing strange weapons, a magical burning sensation, and an aura of black gunpowder. Gusha said, what a powerful technique. I don't know what weapon it is, it looks very useful. Xia Qi said, you should know that Goblin has a dog-like nose in their cave and is very agile in dealing with surrounding smells. However, these are ridiculous weaknesses in front of Xia Qi, who is fully armed and has made special arrangements. A strange sphere was thrown into the hole, and a strange fragrance immediately caught Goblin's attention. When Goblin carefully smelled it, he lost all his resistance and fainted on the ground. R.Type .13 sleeping gas. Specifically used for special operations and stealth operations. But some goblins are very cleverly avoiding the scent and pretending to be unconscious. But these were all detected by Xia Qi. After all, there is a clear distinction between being unconscious and pretending to sleep. After a joyful battle, the battle had already ended when the goblin assassin arrived. I saw the female boxer blushing and covering her body with clothes, while a man with no apparent background was slaughtering a young goblin. Just so close, Goblin is about to succeed. But there are 3 ghostly warriors, and their speed is very fast. With extremely fast maneuverability, it was easy to slaughter goblins and priests' goblins. These girls caught by Goblin have lifeless eyes like puppets, losing their highlights. One of the incredibly powerful warriors suddenly threw off his helmet, spat out blood, and fell to the ground feeling extremely weak. Xia Qi became wary and said, "How could it be? Another one. Was it done by Goblin? Can you still break through our armor?" The weak warrior said, "I can't hold on anymore. I'm sorry Captain Xia Qi, I can't continue to accompany you anymore." Xia Qi. What's going on? In the eyes of the goblin assassin, 2 unidentified warriors were inspecting their companions and then taking off the advanced armor of the fallen warrior. To his shock, after the mecha was detached, it was reassembled into a metal puppet that did not require human control. Then he saw the weak warrior's body emitting a strange beam of light, gradually collapsing. Gusha said, "What a terrifying magical attack. How could it last so long? Even I admire him." The injured soldier said, "For the glory of the Terra Empire. Take me home, Xia Qi, sure you. I really want to. Cough, I really want to see my family again." Xia Qi grabbed the other person's arm and gently leaned him against the rock wall. The injured soldier just finished these words and then lowered his head as if relieved. Xia Qi clenched his fist and lightly struck his heart, making a military salute, "Farewell brother." Watching the warrior's head slowly lower, even the goblin assassin, who was accustomed to death, felt a hint of sadness. Xia Qi. For the Terra Empire. Sure you. For the Terra Empire. The 2 soldiers stood up and said, "Farewell, Dawn. My friend." In this way, this legendary warrior who has repeatedly made military achievements on various planets has shed a heavy burden, like an ordinary child, shedding tears and forever sleeping in this foreign land. Sure you said. This is his fate. He should have died in several battles during the Battle of Terra long ago. It's because you told him that you have a way to find your way home. Xia Qi said, "At least he died as a warrior. Although I haven't known him for long, I don't know why, but I'm still a bit disappointed." Xia Qi, what was the reason that destroyed his will? Sure you said, Qing Shi is an old wound. He was destroyed by some kind of dark matter, which has destroyed all the restorative properties of his body. He endured pain for a long time, after all, our limited technology cannot solve it. So there's no other way, it all depends on Qing Shi's will to go home. Xia Qi, we're the only ones left. Yes. Xia Qi. I remember you were a girl, right? Are you afraid of death? Sure you said, with you around, I'm not afraid. Because you said you would take us home. 2 masked people took off their masks and restored their voices. Xia Qi, what should we do next? Xia Qi, hey, Xia Qi said, I'm thinking about how about we make a baby, facing the sea, with spring flowers blooming, farming, raising horses, and herding sheep. First, let's have 17 or 8 children. After a short silence, sure you sister roast, are you funny? I'm crazy. Then, waving a chainsaw, he slashed at Xia Qi and regarded him as a heretic, saying, You have indeed defected to say Ni, you traitor. Damn it, just a word of disagreement is so stimulating. Just kidding me. Xia Qi hurriedly explained, wearing battle armor all year round, we only know how to fight and kill, but of course, this basic requirement is still necessary. Sure you said, I can't control you below, let's castrate you. In order to protect his brother Xia Qi, he began to constantly explain, of course, this is just a joke, and more importantly, the theme of the other world has always been popular. Anyway, everyone has come. Let's live here for a while. Suddenly, Xia Qi pointed his finger towards the armored man holding a torch in the darkness. The other person's brain couldn't turn for a moment, and they couldn't even understand what these two guys were saying. Xia Qi, ahem. That interesting friend over there, the happy goblin party is over. It can be seen that this person spoke very little, but a simple and clear voice came from the mask. Goblins' cubs cannot be let go, they must be eliminated. A grenade was thrown into the hidden space behind the bone seat, and a huge explosion destroyed the lives inside. Goblin was completely burned. Xia Qi said, "That's natural eradication, leaving no chance for any heretics to turn things around." Gusha said, "Only a dead goblin is a good goblin, and goblins must all be killed." The two people who felt very compatible shook hands, not saying too much to gain recognition from each other. More importantly, the goblin killer is worth cultivating and is a natural warrior. Introduction to the Goblin Killer Adventure Association. The so-called adventurers are nothing more than a group of ordinary people who possess some weapons or strength. Many of them are enthusiastic young people with a strong sense of justice. Others are eager to earn more money so that they can get married and go home. They are doing all kinds of strange tasks in exchange for gold coins. Only the more powerful can become stronger warriors or mercenaries, and most people want to become stronger adventurers in order to earn more commissions. Whether exploring various relics, killing monsters, or even defeating monsters, you can harvest a large amount of gold coins. But more newcomers disappeared from the mission to suppress Goblin. However, such a high mortality rate has not been warned or even discouraged by any guild. Every day in the Adventurer Guild, there are piles of various tasks piled up like mountains. There is only one person with a unique exception. A man who will always only accept the task of defeating Goblin. This is the Goblin Assassin. The one who has escaped from the dice of the gods and mastered his own destiny. In the past, their village was invaded by Goblin, and all the people they knew and didn't know died in the village, protected by their sister in the cellar of their home. Gusha witnessed his sister being dragged away by Goblin through a crack, and then there was silence and some strange roars, "Loyal Chainsaw Boy." But he did not find his sister's body, as if something powerful had intervened to save her, a regrettable figure, naturally worth Xia Qi's intervention and even deceived the world for it. In order to survive, he stayed in the cellar for a whole week. He survived by eating the surrounding soil and only a little water, and successfully escaped the village occupied by Goblin. Afterwards, he was educated by a master who was similar to a dwarf, although he was not sure, he looked quite like Goblin, and he cruelly received various training to learn how to kill Goblin. With his extremely strong will and desire to kill, Gusha survived and became a silver-level adventurer with his own strength. And silver is the highest level certified by the Adventurers Association. Since his debut, he has been killing goblins, and his eccentric personality naturally caught the attention of the Adventure Guild. And the adventurers around him often mocked him. After all, they often saw the Goblin Assassin wearing a worn and rusty armor, a sealed helmet on his head, and a body full of blood and various foul smells. The constant silence of goblins made adventurers who usually pay special attention to cleanliness and hygiene very disgusted by Gesha, as if he had lowered the level of adventurers. In their view, even though they have silver-level strength, they do not go to fight against large monsters, but only slaughter goblins. Because no one knows the pain and despair he has experienced before, as he said, the army of demons can always be defeated by the brave. I cannot be a brave, but I can protect the village that is about to be destroyed by Goblin. It is precisely because he has experienced his hometown and loved ones being destroyed by Goblin, and also knows what Goblin has done. So he can understand the inner thoughts of some adventurers who were attacked by Goblin. Goblin is not a foolish creature with low intelligence, but rather possesses intelligence. With just a little instruction, Goblin can immediately learn many skills and spread them. So the most active swordsman was killed as the first male, and then the female mage was stabbed and lost her resistance. Stronger and more powerful boxers were left behind to breed goblins. Even Goblin knows that women with strong bodies can give birth to healthier and stronger offspring. Even able to withstand more pain, but nature prefers long-lived elves over human goblins. As for why the little priests only suffered a slight injury, it is obvious that they know that mages, priests, and monks have special skills that can be inherited by the cubs. Female adventurers of special professions can evolve into goblin heroes, goblin paladins, and even goblin kings by handing them over to the powerful priest goblin. It can be said that the fate of this team's demise is predetermined. The task they are taking on is not just for ordinary goblins, but for an existence beyond the team's capabilities. But unlike the tragic ending of the original work, apart from the cannon fodder of the male swordsman, those who die cannot die anymore. The others are basically not in a big deal. After all, Xia Qi's maneuvering speed is very fast here. In this cave filled with disgusting and unpleasant odors, the women in tattered clothes are the female villagers who have been kidnapped nearby, while the scattered skeletons are the villagers who have been eaten. Afterwards, the cave was burned by flames, and all evil dissipated. Xia Qi also used a grenade to collapse the cave and buried the remains of the victims. Being escorted to the ground, these people seemed to be suddenly awakened, and the eyes of the survivors were no longer confused. The remaining adventurers abandoned their innocence and truly understood the adventure. The goblin assassin arrived at a beautiful mountain slope with 2 men and a woman wearing unknown armor, a female boxer, a young priest, and a female magician. They buried a great warrior from a foreign land in beautiful scenery. Xia Qi compiled DNA data from his advanced armor and sent it to the goblin assassin. Although the warriors of the empire sacrificed themselves, their loyal armor was still able to fight and leave a deep impression on all the heretics conquered by armor. The armor style of everyone is similar to that of Halo Sergeant and Destroyer, and each person has a set of advanced armor, which is a must-have equipment for every ordinary human soldier. The Imperial judges, on the other hand, had more advanced combat equipment, and most of them dispersed afterwards. However, Xia Qi joined the team, including the goblin killers and the little divine officer. Xia Qi stayed in this strange world, and a few days later, a team of adventurers composed of women took on a mission to conquer a dilapidated fortress occupied by goblin. This is a well-equipped and well-prepared team, even prepared for combat. But they arrogantly chose to go to the most sober moment of goblin at noon. So their fate was also very tragic. Everyone was caught by goblin. As if playing with the gods, he carried out a foolish and ridiculous mission to send himself to death. When they realized it was an evil trap from goblin and wanted to evacuate, they were already trapped in a tight encirclement. Groups of goblins have surrounded them, trees and corners everywhere, even if their strength is very strong. Once the number of goblins gathers into a group, they will also capsize and soon be overwhelmed by the goblins. A noble female warrior, in order to maintain her beautiful appearance without even wearing a helmet, was ambushed on the head by a goblin with a stone. For these cunning creatures, the death of their companions is meaningless. They only want to play with killing, and even eat these despicable humans. The beautiful female swordsman's consciousness gradually weakened as the blood flowed from the wound. Surrounded by the voices of her compatriots crying in fear. Most of her companions died in a tragic fate, and she fought to the death to resist. Just as she was about to be defiled or even killed by goblin, the man carrying the sound appeared. She saw a man who seemed to be able to destroy all the monsters in the world. He waved an unstoppable magic sword filled with unknown totems and composed of red light. The man easily tore through Goblin's ridiculous defense. And while running at an extremely fast speed, he threw out a spear and fiercely plunged the goblin warrior in charge of command into the bunker. At the same time, he shook his hand and shot down the most dangerous mage goblin. Those weak and simple arrows could not penetrate the destruction armor personally crafted by the destroyer for Xia Qi. Goblin made an inexplicable strange cry and began to summon companions, but the number did not determine the outcome of goblin. On the pile of corpses piled up like mountains in Goblin, a man with strange armor stood high. At that moment, he bathed in Goblin's blood like a deity. efficiently and quickly wielding the blade of judgment, slaughtering the remaining goblins like the high and mighty portraits of past heroes in the temple. Xia Qi's extremely strong combat strength is like the warrior king in ancient prophecies. The famous female swordsman was very fascinated, and this warrior brought destruction to the monsters. That day she fell. After all, she chose to be an adventurer because she wanted to get rid of her family. That day she found her own knight. Just thinking about Xia Qi's strong body, she instinctively felt like she. Hey, the old driver understood. Xia Qi extended a helping hand to her at such a critical moment and saved her. The survivors who were abducted by Goblin were also found by Xia Qi. Although some of them have died, there are still survivors alive. And the Goblin assassin is being taught by a more formidable teacher. Becoming stronger is necessary to better deal with Goblin, and the Goblin assassins naturally turned to Xia Qi and the others for guidance. And Xia Qi also had the intention of accepting apprentices, so naturally he took what he had. Since it is a different world, there are naturally elves. Xia Qi heard that in the vast forest in the distance, there are beautiful, intelligent, and long-lived long-eared elves living. They have a long lifespan and beautiful faces. They like to use bows and arrows, and have a natural hostility towards the ugly and unattractive goblins. Pretty elf Mississippi hehe, you're quite curious. Chapter 04. Entrustment of the Saint of Sword. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Due to Xia Qi's team often accepting challenging commissions, their reputation naturally spread outside. A strange team composed of elf dwarves, lizards, and dwarves is searching for the goblin killer because the war between the warriors and the demon king affected various great powers. Dwarves, elves, and even the lizard man and human king gathered together to form an alliance. And gather various powerful adventurers from the public to form a campaign team. But dealing with Goblin is not worthy of using the power of the army, so it can only be solved by adventurers. But dealing with goblins is usually very dirty and messy, and the coins obtained are very few, with almost no one doing it. Except for some strange guy. As if hearing the word goblin, the goblin killer immediately looked around, but there was nothing. Goblin. Do you have goblin? So weak, you still want to kill goblin, give me good training. Then the goblin assassin was scolded by the teacher, continuing to lower his head and wave a heavy knife in sweat. And this world itself is a game, where kind-hearted and chaotic gods use the dice of fate to enhance the points of optimistic forces. The fate of adventurers sometimes wins and sometimes fails, but in the end it is just a game of fate played by the gods. Even the brave may die under the attack of Goblin. But only those who never give up hope and bravely resist fate can escape the control of the gods. This adventurer team composed of different races finally found the Goblin killer, but the other party was not interested in the war of the Demon King, except for Goblin. The beautiful noblewoman and little priest joined Xia Qi's team, along with the Goblin assassin. When they heard that they were going to attack Goblin, everyone immediately agreed and formed a relatively large expedition team. But after hearing about Goblin appearing, everyone expressed their willingness to go at the same time. After several days of interaction, the little priest also developed a liking for the Goblin killer, because as an outsider, Xia Qi told her some things about them, saying that even without them, the Goblin killer would save her because I am a guest from outside the world and have passed on my original future to her. After a long journey, the group arrived at an open area in the forest, where a huge artificial ancient relic was located in a vast plain. There are 2 goblins with spears and leather pants standing guard at the entrance, and even a wolf serving as a police dog. A certain elf said, "It's really fake. Who would have thought that Goblin had wolf cavalry, and even evolved goblin cavalry, archers, and scouts who fought on wolves?" Gusha said, "Although goblins are stupid, they are not stupid. They understand learning and teamwork. Xia Qi, if we simply treat Goblin as a foolish monster, then the end is bound to be painful. Unlike in the past, which required constant strategic planning and vigilance against goblins, now Goblin assassins who have joined the Wind Spirit Moon Shadow sect can even perform so-called fierce male descent. We land on both feet and step into hell. Xia Qi said, just act recklessly without any scheming or tactical deployment. Just kill all the monsters in front of you that block you. Without mercy, open your chest and pierce your stomach. Under more advanced melee weapons, the goblin killer abandoned the traditional iron sword and instead used more advanced sub-alloy tactical weapons. The little priest also bravely fought with a small knife, and her holy white robe was stained with goblins' dirty blood. Even noble knights wield their long swords. Her delicate and charming faces were covered in blood, but she smiled happily. With Xia Qi's strong back in her eyes. Suddenly, a dull voice appeared. A particularly burly, massive creature with long legs appeared. Elf. No, it's a troll, be careful. Other adventurers. Trolls have very strong strength, and they possess advanced magic with extremely strong healing power. With a thud. The invincible troll has fallen. A simple combo of moves divided this massive body into 3 sections, while using a flamethrower to burn the troll's body, emitting a fragrance in the flames. A certain Xia Qi, covered in green blood, turned around and asked the elf girl who had just called her. Did you just say something? The elf, because everything happened too quickly, could only open his mouth in a daze and say, "Dot." The elf who woke up from a dream said, "No, nothing." The proud elf was choked by Xia Qi for a moment and didn't know how to respond. Elf's inner theater. I used to say that this guy looks like a mixed fish. Just boasting, he must be very weak. What should we do? What should we do? He's so strong, will he be educated harshly? I don't know why, I have a little expectation. The specially designed combustion bottle will burn out the clustered goblins, and goblins will not even have a chance to appear, so they will be burned to ashes. The trolls under the command of the Demon King army were easily slaughtered by Xia Qi. Even though their recovery ability was very strong, it was as fast as the blade that could cut off cells. After all, they are not as powerful as demons, they are just larger miscellaneous soldiers, and they even sing magic when launching their ultimate moves. Xia Qi, are you all okay? Gusha said. I killed 35 more goblins. The little priest said, I'm fine. Other members of the team who had no chance of snatching heads. Family members are speechless, that guy is too strong. However, while everyone was resting, an even denser sound of footsteps came. Then a unique object flew out and exploded. In this explosive art, the goblin just now disappeared almost completely. Xia Qi held a super Gatling with 4 turntables and roared with blue flames, running through a metal melody called Death. Wherever he went, goblins were torn apart. Suddenly, the sound stopped and Xia Qi's weapon bullets ran out. Xia Qi seemed to be in a daze, suddenly standing in place. A group of goblins immediately surrounded and waved weapons, but even the paint on Xia Qi's armor couldn't hang. The goblin assassin quickly wanted to check on his teacher and changed the formation. During this distraction, a certain elf was surrounded by a group of goblins due to the lack of bows and arrows, and others were also surrounded by a large number of goblins. Several goblins immediately knocked down the elves and took away their weapons. The elf gradually became exhausted, and her clothes were torn open, revealing large areas of skin. For a moment, the team suddenly fell into a stalemate, and it was clear to the naked eye that they could win with just a breath. But behind the broken wall, more trolls and goblins appeared. After seeing the half-naked elves lying on the ground, they showed a wicked smile and gathered around. Goblins have a very fast reproductive ability and grow rapidly. Perhaps in just 1 or 2 days, goblins can regain their numbers. Xia Qi. Let me think about how that guy Doom did it when he ran out of bullets. I remember now. Quantum Weapon Vault. Destruction chainsaw. With the sound of a chainsaw, goblin fell like harvested wheat, but there was nothing. Too weak, not even the lowest level demon. Later, Xia Qi tore up a troll with his hand, dropped all the bullets from his weapons, and was taken away by Xia Qi, Destroyer's unique chainsaw. With it, you are no longer afraid of weapons without bullets. As for a certain elf, it's really peaceful. After all, in the face of sexiness, being cute is worthless, but she is indeed very cute. It seemed like Xia Qi was looking at her rudely, and a certain elf put on a haughty expression. After all, it was a proud and delicate elf. Elf. Humph, as an elf who has lived for over 2,000 years, I won't argue with you, this human cub. Xia Qi. Well, you can put it on first. Although the elf said she refused, her hands were very honest. With a proud face, she still took the robe handed over by Xia Qi with a red face. Afterwards, everyone rescued the elf's companion and held the small shoulder bag that Goblin had thrown in the corner. The elf showed an angry expression. Xia Qi said, "On this continent, nobles own land and enjoy everything. Even if villages are destroyed, it will not affect their lives. After all, the city surrounded by sturdy castles and moats is so safe." Afterwards, everyone continued to criticize Goblin's commissioned mission, and the team had more and more members, gradually gaining fame. Under the singing of the bard, this incredibly powerful adventure team gradually appeared in the ears of some upper-class people through the praise of the bard. The Sword Saint, beloved by the gods, also heard news about the Goblin Killer Squad in the water capital where she lived. The capital of water is so far away, but with the operation of all-terrain locomotives, people can easily cross mountains and ridges. Because it is equipped with an anti-gravity system, the driver can shuttle very quickly to any place they want to go. The second largest city in the Kingdom of Water, it is even more prosperous and prosperous. The surrounding water resources are extremely abundant, and the way of transportation also relies on ships. Elf. Will goblins also appear in such a bustling and massive city? Gusha said, "Yes, there is." The goblin assassin said with great certainty. In some corners of this city, there is an atmosphere of goblins staring at the village. This instinctive intuition led him to discover many caves in Goblin in the past. Xia Qi said, "This luxurious and upscale temple is located in the center of the city, surrounded by water, easy to defend but difficult to attack, and has a beautiful scenery." Miss Noble. It can be said that the Saint of Sword is the idol of all adventurers on this continent. Subsequently, everyone was received by the Saint of Sword in the palace. This plump saint has a head of golden hair, but her eyes are covered with a piece of silk. These eyes were brutally burned by Goblin over a decade ago, and she was covered in bruises from Goblin's injuries, but in the end she survived. But she was shrouded in the terrifying memory of goblins plundering her all year round. Even though she now has the same strength as the brave, she still fears those goblins. As if a goblin would jump out of the darkness at any moment, when Mother Moon descended, she was different from the usual flawless image of a saint in the deep night. In the darkness, she was like a helpless little girl curled up in the blanket, shedding frightened tears and trembling, as if nothing in the room could stop the terrifying nightmare. As if when she was distracted, countless goblins would jump out and tear apart her sacred disguise, dragging her back into the dark, damp, and sunless cave. But the man who once saved her has returned, unfortunately she can no longer see. Although Xia Qi's appearance matched the tall and strong body of the unnamed warrior who had redeemed her earlier. Moreover, due to the correction of time, although she could no longer see it, the familiar voice still made her feel a hint of familiarity. "Saint. Did you come back? My beloved. Xia Qi, who? Are you referring to me? Has the famous me become a prominent figure? She didn't look down on us, but treated us equally. If she has time, she can help. This girl is also quite pitiful." At the same time, the past and present have formed a time loop, and today's act of kindness by the Virgin Mary has promoted Xia Qi's return to the past to save her. After learning that the Virgin was unable to confront Goblin underground, everyone expressed their understanding of her plight and offered a generous reward. And the goblin assassin also put forward his professional advice. The complexity of the sewer in the City of Water is no different from that of the massive ruins, making it very suitable for Goblin to hide. Chapter 05. Goblin Assassin Sword Saint and Destroying Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. For elves who love nature and forests, they detest the dark, wet, and dirty sewers, not to mention the dim caves. Gusha said, "May I ask if you have explored it? How many goblins are inside?" The Sword Saint said regretfully, "We don't know, and many adventurers have accepted commissions. But they all lost contact." Gusha said, "This way. Saint. I'm sorry, I even decided on the level and number of adventurers, but no one can come back alive. Everyone. Don't worry, leave it to us. In the sewer of the water capital." The little priest said, "According to the map given by the Virgin, this place is simply a maze. Xia Qi, be careful, everyone. In such a complex and eerie underground, I don't know how many dangers are hidden." Elf. Along the way, we have encountered at least 3 teams of goblins. Xia Qi said, "Open your stomach, open your stomach. Please ignore a man's words." Not far away, a faint light illuminated this place, and a large group of goblins swam over with bows and arrows in a boat. Goblin has formed a large scale by utilizing the drainage system of the Wangdu as a means of transportation. The crowd gathered their momentum and launched a surprise attack. Xia Qi was particularly excited and launched a rocket jump, firing a shot at the ground and using the impact to fly onto the ship. Xia Qi's heavy armor pierced a hole in the ship, and several goblins curiously watched the hole. But from the darkness, a pair of steel-like hands grabbed Goblin's head and crushed the little watermelon. Afterwards, the sharp blade pierced through the hull of the ship and the goblin above, which fell to the ground in 4 and 5 pieces, and their orange eyes widened and fell to the ground. These goblins clearly have different equipment compared to goblins who are naked and wielding wooden sticks and other weapons. Gusha said, "It's like someone is providing equipment for Goblin." After a brief exploration, everyone felt tired from the stench of the sewer and returned to the ground, heading towards the bathtub in the temple. Here, it's not just simple toiletries, but also blessings from the gods. This is a unique way for pure girls to worship gods. The Saint of Sword met the warrior alone, with a perfect body like a goddess, intricately curved and captivating. She smelled a certain divine aura from the man. Under the moonlight, a lonely figure of a woman is reflected. "Are you here to save me?" A pair of plump lips expressed the poor girl's wish. In front of this strong person, she unreservedly revealed the most fearful thing in her heart. Compared to previous exploits and lies, she just wanted to use this group of famous people to die in the dungeon as a warning to the upper class, and Goblin had already formed a very powerful threat. But now she saw the deity, and Xia Qi used something to bring her back to light, matching the powerful figure in her memory. She hugged the man excitedly and wept softly. This world was created by the gods, and in their eyes, all things in the world are game pieces. Their fate depends entirely on the interests of the gods. As long as they are willing, ordinary people can possess supreme power and become so-called warriors. Once there is no interest, even great warriors may become ordinary cannon fodder. The brave warrior, who was particularly cute and beautiful, was just an ordinary person in the village at that time. One day, their village encountered Goblin. An unnamed warrior with unknown name and origin arrived here. He effortlessly killed Goblin, who was threatening the village of the brave. Afterwards, she became an adventurer, and with various adventures along the way, she gradually became the most powerful team among adventurers, eventually becoming a brave warrior to fight against the Demon King. But the unknown soldier seemed to have disappeared into history, appearing again at some point now. His legend has been passed down to this day. After safely driving out all the goblins underwater, the group bid farewell to the Virgin and returned to the village to continue living a peaceful and interesting life. Until one day, the Goblin killer discovered large footprints outside Cowgirl's farm. Gusha muttered to himself, "It's Goblin, and there are a lot of them." You should know that Goblin is very cunning and often likes to use weaker enemies. When female adventurers show sympathy towards them and sneak attacks without any defense, they stab them in the back for revenge. Countless female adventurers who sympathized with Goblin died in their hands because of their ridiculous virgin heart. King Goblin has appeared. It will lead the army to attack the farm after hiding in the dark for many days. Based on the large number of footprints on the ground, it can be inferred that there are too many goblins, and he alone cannot match them. He interrupted the cowgirl who wanted to have breakfast, persuading his childhood sweetheart to give up everything and run away quickly. But the girl didn't want to leave. After all, she knew that after the village was destroyed that year. If she leaves again, the goblin killer will be homeless, and the only people she knows will be herself. Cowgirl. Moreover, the cows on the ranch are the only means of survival for our family. I really can't leave. Facing childhood sweethearts with a determined determination to die is a firm gaze full of trust. The goblin assassin panicked and then vowed to do his best to protect her. Later in the Adventurer Guild, he sent a message to all the adventurers, blocking all of them, but many adventurers did not want to deal with the mere goblins. But upon hearing that he was willing to give money, time, and even life, many people were willing to help him. And led by several mercenaries of the same level, other adventurers also chose to join. They established a defense line on the outskirts of the farm, waiting for the invasion of the goblin army. Until midnight, the goblins finally had some movement. King Goblin is very strategic. It waved its hand and ordered the other goblins to tie the women they had captured onto the chariot, slowly advancing as shields. And humans also had their own strategies. Two mages used the words of drowsiness to make these goblins fall to the ground, and the remaining adventurers rushed forward to take these women to a safe place. And King Goblin subsequently launched wolf cavalry. A large number of cavalry appeared. Gusha said, "They are very fast and in groups, be careful." Xia Qi decided to make the party more lively. Call. Jack Cooper. A man wearing a handsome helmet and flying against the wall came to a tall mecha and said, "BT, what's the situation?" "BT, I received a rescue signal regarding the mysterious friend you mentioned. Czechoslovakia Kubo. Good guy, I thought this kid had already passed away. Where is his position? Let's go quickly." BT received, locating coordinates. Then Xia Qi's good friend from another world fell from the sky, and an ordinary rifle soldier appeared. It was indeed very ordinary, that is, he would drive a very powerful mecha to fight, and move quickly on the wall like flying. This man, wearing an unknown mask and holding a rifle, was piloting the Pioneer Titan BT from the sky. After landing, he instantly knocked down several dangerous goblins and shuttled through the battlefield at an extremely fast speed. Cooper. Who called Taiyu? BT Pioneer-class Titans have landed. A massive mechanical puppet appeared in front of all the adventurers, and then the interior was opened, from which a particularly agile man emerged and jumped onto the shoulders of this tall armored man. BT Pioneer Titan BT, reporting to you. Like a meteorite hitting the ground, a blazing presence descended from the sky and hit the ground heavily. Then a tall mecha man wearing thick armor also arrived here. He is tall and wears incredibly heavy armor. This is the ecstatic presence of our Halo players, Sergeant. He was tracing the traces of the sorrowful prophet when he suddenly heard Xia Qi's demand to rush there. After all, after leaving, the time in his own world would freeze, which would not affect the deployment of the Star Alliance. Xia Qi said, "Sergeant, long time no see." Sergeant. Long time no see, Xia Qi, you are the battle hero who saved the noble team on Ziyuan Star. Although I don't understand how I grew up to be friends with a sergeant, since the other person came to help me, I will go to Ziyuan Star to join the fun in the future. The fully automatic and powerful rifle easily cut through Goblin's life. This group of fast and agile mysterious warriors easily shattered Goblin's defense line. A massacre against Goblin is beginning, and the king of Goblin, who was watching from afar, saw the unfavorable situation and quickly fled. Damn it, the other party is cheating and slipped away. So he quickly dispatched his ace, and the Goblin heroes came forward to delay time. These incredibly powerful goblins had a strong physique and immense power, but these cannon fodders were only exposed when they were one by one exposed. King Goblin is desperately fleeing the goblin assassin who knew Goblin's thoughts came here, ready to annihilate it in one fell swoop. Xia Qi punched a goblin and felt something. Go, my proud disciple. Go kill Goblin, you're unstoppable now. And on this side, the Goblin King, who was tightly gripped by a magical wall by the little priest, showed off his ugly acting skills. Please let me go, I will return to the forest and live quietly. Sorry, I will leave. King Goblin even left false tears, and Gosha said, only a dead goblin is a good goblin. Despite wearing a mask, he could feel the anger burning in his eyes, and then his anger engulfed King Goblin. Goblin cave linkage, anyway, there are goblins, why not link them together? A group of pilgrims, without any soldiers, only camped in the forest. There were no accompanying guards. But believing in the gods, as if as long as one believes in the gods, all difficulties can be easily solved. The blonde saint among them was even more beautiful, but unfortunately they had bad luck today and met Goblin. This Goblin is clearly different from the wild, but is controlled by higher intelligence. After reading the prayer, the girl opened her eyes and was horrified to find that everyone around her had died, while Goblin, who was drooling, stared at her. The girl trembled with great fear. Goblin. God, please save my life from this beast's hands. However, only Goblin's stick responded to her, and by the time the girl regained consciousness, she could no longer escape. So the girl was taken away by Goblin, and some even wanted to do something to her, refers to the various colors that Goblin likes the most. Wearing a red robe, she was chained up, waiting for an unknown fate. Then Goblin, who was impatient, stopped and wanted to do something. But in a moment of despair, another thing appeared, effortlessly killing Goblin who wanted to roar. She saw, as if a deity had descended upon her. The Goblin assassins dressed in special battle armor, the warriors, and an entire adventure team appeared. After defeating the army of the Demon King, the great warrior king directly killed the temple. He knocked down the gods to the ground and took away the dice that controlled all beings. And returning to the past, he saved more tragic things, and then the fierce man who was awarded the title of Destroyer left this strange world. And the gods had an abnormal fear of his address. God Slayer, a crude stranger, the king of warriors, the protagonist who started too quickly did not carefully clean the battlefield, so naturally there were still surviving gods. Although the war against the Demon King has ended, goblins still exist. This threat to all new adventurers and the existence of the village immediately caught everyone's attention. There are even more goblin assassins with better equipment than in previous years. And he received a graduation gift from his teacher, which he thought was his sister who had been dead for many years. It turned out that the teacher had appeared and secretly protected her back then. She was trained to become an adventurer, and now she misses her younger brother very much and is very strong. Eliminate all goblins. There are still countless goblins lurking in dark caves on this continent. Gusha said, of course, Goblin must be eliminated. As long as it's a mission to eliminate Goblin. You can give it all to me. Chapter 06. Goblin Killer. Goblin Crown. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A certain adventurer is heading towards destruction. Beyond the border of the royal capital, in the desolate and cold plain far from the bustling city, Goblin appears. This kind of organism spreads and breeds like cockroaches, and to eliminate goblins, it needs to constantly suppress them and chase them. In this snowy town, amidst the ice and snow, there is a well-equipped and experienced aristocratic adventurer team. Due to the support of a wealthy noblewoman, this adventure team was temporarily formed and equipped with excellent equipment, even more luxurious than ordinary adventurers. The weapons and equipment used were all very good and dazzling. As the leader, one of the lovely noble girls with blonde hair and double ponytails wielded a long sword inlaid with rubies, killing Goblin very gracefully. Girl. Goblin, this low-intelligence monster, is too easy to deal with. It's both nervous and safe, it's really a good adventure. She is the captain of the adventure team, and the daughter of a noble family embarked on her first adventure in life due to her love of adventure. However, Goblin is not an idiot, encountering powerful adventurers with excellent equipment and neat coordination. The goblins did not recklessly continue to step forward naked as usual. Instead, they know how to wear leather clothes to avoid the cold, and even have tactical awareness to gradually surround their team. But in the face of difficult adventurers, the goblins deliberately fled in fear and gradually led them to the vicinity of the trap, which the adventurers were unaware of. The commanders behind these goblins are extremely intelligent beings, which also laid the groundwork for the downfall of the adventurers and their group. The enemy is a goblin paladin that even experienced adventurers may not be able to easily solve. It can be said that their team was unlucky. At the beginning, they found rocket boots. Just like how the novice team of the little god faced back then, encountering experienced monsters at the beginning was simply seeking death. One of the elf girls with brown hair quickly caught up. Unlike those who like ranged elves, she seemed to prefer melee combat. Many goblins run away in fear on the snow, but how can their short stature run faster than humans of normal size? The goblins, with their small hands and feet, were unable to run faster, let alone escape in the cold snow. Being chased by the elf girl at an extremely fast speed, the short goblin was stabbed to death by this beautiful elf girl. The elf girl danced with very handsome hands and feet, forgetting that there was still goblins around, relaxing her vigilance against the surrounding enemies. Another short and cute blue-haired elf girl used a small knife to kill a goblin that was not much shorter than her. She was the thinnest member of the adventure team due to her short stature. Because her hands slipped in the icy and snowy weather, the weapon that pierced Goblin slipped off. The elf girl quickly lowered her head to pick it up, when a goblin approached from behind holding a wooden stick and was about to ambush her. But the next moment, they were immediately killed by a hammer, and it was one of the men in their team, a strong dwarf gang. Dwarf. Hey, don't be in a daze. Pay attention to safety. Hey, mage, what are you still looking at? Are you ready to eliminate the enemy? Male wizard. Of course I saw everything. May I invite you with me, Mississippi? The noblewoman leaned over and sang the magic trick back to back with him. Mississippi, of course. Mage. Lightning strike, Mississippi. Launch. The tall and thin mages in the team launched a large scale lightning strike with the noblewoman, and a powerful lightning covered the surrounding goblins that surrounded them. The surrounding goblins died in large numbers under the electric shock, and the scene was extremely magnificent and spectacular. Even though they fought so hard, they still underestimated Goblin. In the subsequent pursuit, the noblewoman believed that they should continue to delve deeper and attempt to hunt more goblins, and found it very interesting and adventurous. Even prepared a large amount of food to trap Goblin in the cave. However, the last time the villagers saw the young lady, she was already very weak and even in poor spirits. Afterwards, this well-equipped and 5-member team completely disappeared into the forest, and no one knew what they had encountered. Afterwards, from the teenage family, a nobleman's request for assistance appeared in the Adventurer Guild. Because even if they are nobles, the human king mercilessly refuses to send troops to search. They had no choice but to seek help from the most famous adventurer association. A commission from a distant border quickly spread to the small town where the goblin assassin was located. Because the other adventurers shook their heads and refused the nobles when they heard it was Goblin. When the Virgin heard about this, she thought of the Goblin Killer and Xia Qi. "Dear Mr. Goblin Killer, I have something I want to ask you. It's because a young lady left her parents. and become an adventurer. After receiving a commission from the Adventurers Union to suppress Goblin, her whereabouts are unknown. This kind of thing is understandable, but her parents asked the guild to search for her whereabouts. The key is that this young lady was entrusted with the task of eliminating Goblin. The Union is seeking help from me, but the only person I think of is you, and only you can have a solution for Goblin. Can you please go save her? Signature. Saint of Sword. Upon hearing that Goblin had appeared, the Goblin assassin immediately set out and led the team. As for his master, I don't know where he went on a trip. Unlike the original plot, with the equipment of the master and the all-terrain vehicle, the Goblin assassin arrived here earlier than before. They arrived within a few days at such a distant distance. Due to the cold, everyone changed into winter clothes and quickly rushed to the village where Goblin had been spotted. In a village in this icy and snowy land, goblins ambushed the village, killing unarmed villagers and plundering the food and crops here. After the previous group of adventurers went missing, the village was gradually devoured by Goblin, but the Goblin killer appeared in time. The team dispersed and began to deal with Goblin, who had invaded the village. A Goblin fell from the snowy roof to avoid arrows shot by elves, and the poor Goblin broke his nose bridge. When it lifted its head, the Goblin assassin, wearing a helmet and smoking a cigarette, appeared in front of Goblin. Seeing Goblin alone, Gosha mercilessly raised his right hand and vigorously swung it downwards. The little priest wearing winter clothes waved her magic weapon not far from the Goblin killer, avoiding 3 goblins holding wooden sticks, bouncing and laughing with evil laughter. However, the weak attack of the young girl did not arouse Goblin's fear, instead they laughed like children. But in the next moment, Goblin couldn't laugh anymore, instead he was sweating profusely. The one who laughed the most wildly was split in half, and when the other was surprised, the Goblin killer did not stop, but continued to pursue the victory. The last Goblin grabbed the divine staff waved by the goddess official and attempted to snatch the magical tool from her hand. The little priest activated the chanting magic, the merciful mother of the earth. Please bestow upon us, lost in the darkness, a divine radiance. The holy light emitted by the artifact caused Goblin to lose his sight, and the Goblin assassins continued to repair their swords and slaughter. The dwarf took a sip of strong liquor and sprayed it into the air, singing a sleeping spell. Goblin, who had taken the villagers hostage, fell asleep. This batch of goblins is clearly different from the vicinity of the town of goblins, as they are more organized and disciplined. The elves skillfully shuttle between the roofs, chasing Goblin who is fleeing on the snow. The agile skills in the air can even make enemies lose their scouts as beautifully as flying. Gusha said, at first, there were 2. There were 7 of them, and 9 of them added up. It looks like there are a total of 12 goblins. They actually know how to gather humans together, which is very wrong. Elf. The corpses of the villagers are also very intact, and there is something wrong with them. Gusha said, they didn't actually destroy the bodies, they even massacred the villages. Lizard Monk. Goblin, on the contrary, is like an organized and disciplined army, occupying this place and attempting to take everyone away. Gusha said, it doesn't seem like the situation is good. There may be a very clever goblin appearing. How many have you killed on your end? Elf. I have 3 on my end. Dwarf. I'll kill 4 of them on my end. Gusha said, with the goblins killed by the team, there are a total of 19, but I remember there seemed to be 20. Gusha said, there's still one hidden nearby. Sure enough, the goblin killer discovered that the last one had escaped from a certain house. The elf girl quickly discovered, over there. Gusha said, indeed, there are 20. The elf quickly jumped to a high place and wanted to pursue Goblin, but her arrow happened to run out. Gusha said, use it. He threw an arrow into the air, and the elf quickly caught it. However, the elf discovered that the arrow was loose but still fired. The arrow pierced the last fleeing goblin, but after being injured and falling to the ground, Goblin quickly pulled out the arrow and continued to run. Elf. What's wrong with this arrow? The arrows are all loose. It was intentionally modified like this, replied the goblin killer. The bloodstains left by the injured goblin were as glaring as a signpost on this pure white snow. As the sky gradually darkened, the goblin assassin stayed in the village, stayed overnight, and treated the injured villagers. The new adventure team began collecting maps and intelligence from the surrounding mountains, as well as various information about the previous adventurer team. Villager. In terms of remuneration, this village doesn't have much money, so they may not be able to afford commission fees. Gusha said, "Don't worry about these things. After we rest, we will immediately pursue them. The key is Goblin. We will stay here tonight and set off immediately at dawn tomorrow." Chapter 07. Goblin Killer and Missing Former Adventurer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Unlike the chilly village outside, the village is brightly lit at night, and two beautiful girls are soaking in hot springs. Elf. It's really comfortable here. Yeah. The little priest said, so warm. The golden hair covered the girl's snow-white skin, and the two girls let out comfortable sighs. And the iron plate elf looked enviously at the other party's hill, which would grow even bigger in the future. And made an interesting voice, stare. I envy you so much. The little priest girl noticed the elf's gaze and was surprised, quickly protecting the small mountain. What are you talking about? The little priest showed a shy face. After all, she was only a very shy girl. The elf mischievously said, really? The little priest said, if only everyone could come. The elf immediately put his hands together and pretended to be some dwarf. Recovery still depends on alcohol. And he clasped his hands together and imitated a lizard, saying, is soil better suited for me? Elf. Mr. Goblin Killer, should he be outside the village? The little priest said, after all, in order to prevent being ambushed by goblin late at night, he is guarding outside. Elf. If left unattended, he might end up like this in his lifetime. The little priest said, but thanks to him, I was able to go to such a distant north. Elf. So I don't care. The two girls chatted. So, may I ask if you left the forest because you were bored? Elf. Well, that's quite different. I have something to do, and it's quite fulfilling in this regard. One day, I saw a basket floating in the river and suddenly became curious where it would end up floating. I couldn't stop walking and chased it through the forest. When I regained my senses, I had already left the forest. Afterwards, we arrived at a dam built by humans. Because it's my first time meeting, it's quite interesting. At that time, the basket was parked there. By the way, I remember humans can only live about 100 years, right? The little priest said, When you become a human, you will be as beautiful and long-lived as a fairy. Elf. When you become an elf, you also hope to become human. Two people said, this world can't always be as one wishes. After a brief rest, the team regrouped and began discussing countermeasures. At the same time, everyone in the village was struggling to eat because the previous food had been sold out by this group of adventurers. Well, all the food is very scarce, and there is a possibility of survival. It is said that when I finally saw her, she was already very weak and did not disappear for too long. Gusha said, Goblin should be building a nest in this area. We must seize every second now. The internal situation and quantity of the nest are unknown. The little priest said, why didn't they enter immediately? It's both wood and grain, which means. Gusha said, it's a hunger war, that's right. They want to use a food shortage war to eliminate Goblin. In the early morning, they braved the cold and stepped into the unknown mountains. Elf. By the way, Goblin Killer, why did you give me that arrow? Gusha said, after being hit by that arrow, the hilt will fall off, leaving only the arrow. If not removed in time, it will produce severe poison. If not removed in a timely manner, it will be harmful and corrode the wound, ultimately leading to death and causing plague. Although it may not be a complete blow, it is still a powerful counterattack. Elf. You always do something inexplicable. Gusha said, after all, the teacher has also taught. Elf. By the way, where did your master go? Gusha shook his head helplessly and said, I don't know. He said he wanted to explore this continent. In the depths of the mountain, they saw the cave that had been sealed by the adventurers before, and the entrance had already been destroyed. Time was running out, and the group lit a bonfire outside. Brother Kill. It's getting dark on the heavenly horse, we'll warm up and enter the cave everyone. It's really cold, I feel like I can't move anymore. Everyone was shivering with cold, enjoying a simple feast and drinking warm hot wine to warm their bodies. Afterwards, all members of the group entered Goblin's lair on high alert. In the depths of the cave, the goblin assassin stopped and plunged his long sword deep into a suspicious pool. Brother Shah said, be careful, everyone. There are poisonous spears lurking inside. Elf. When did Goblin learn to make such a dangerous trap? Gusha said. This kind of thing sometimes happens. Afterwards, they continued to delve deeper. Along the way, I didn't see any totems, indicating that there was no goblin shaman, but there must be a more intelligent existence. 2 openings appeared in a deep cave, and the goblin killer set down the torch. And whispered to his companions, attack from the right. The crowd held on to another cave entrance, and the little priest cast a spell, kind Mother Earth, please give us a deep radiance lost in the darkness. A strong light flashed by, and a large group of goblins hidden deep in the cave lost their sight due to the sudden appearance of intense light in the dark environment. In that moment, the goblin killer observed all, 17 in total, no large goblins, no spellcasters, but archers. Under the command of Gusha, they began to besiege Goblin. The dwarves used stone-splitting magic to condense the soil into stones and scatter them at an extremely fast speed, like machine guns. Miss Elf happily called out each one with a bow and arrow, while the goblin assassin waved his stick, one goblin at a time. Goblin, who had lost his sight, was hit in the head with a stick and thrown far away. The goblin assassin says a number every time he kills, the 11th one. The 14th one. The enemy is about to stand firm. At the moment when the holy light was about to disappear, the little priest once again activated the skill, kind Mother of the Earth, please grant us a divine radiance that has fallen into darkness. Goblin, who had been trying to block the sunlight, was besieged by 2 big men, one of whom aimed very cunningly at the elves. She was ambushed by Goblin and hit by an arrow in her leg, causing her to suddenly lose her combat power due to severe thigh pain. Due to leg injuries, the elf girl fell to the ground and even threw down her weapon, clutching her thighs and making painful noises. The cunning goblin that the goblin assassin quickly killed has all been dealt with. Are you okay? Long Ears, the dwarf asked her with concern. It hurts so much. I'm sorry, I accidentally messed it up. Gusha said, I will treat you immediately. Is the arrow poisonous? There shouldn't be, but we must quickly remove the arrow. In order to remove the arrow, everyone gently pulled it, only to find that it was broken. The little priest said. How could this be? The arrow broke. Brother Shah. Where is the arrow? Elf. Still in my legs. Gusha said, it's unbelievable that they have learned. The goblin killer remembered what he had done and surprisingly appeared on his own team. Dwarf. Is it okay? The arrow must be removed as soon as possible. If it's poisonous, it will be ruined. Gusha said, bite it down so you don't scream in pain later. He handed the elf a piece of cloth and burned a knife with fire. He quickly dug open the wound and took out the arrow, and the elf girl immediately showed a refusal expression. No, I don't want it. The companions began to speak words to scare her. So your legs will rot. In that case, you won't be able to team up with us." So the arrogant woman gritted her teeth and looked at the goblin killer with tearful eyes. "Isn't it really too painful?" Gusha said, "I cannot guarantee, but I will try my best." The proud elf surprisingly took a step back in fear. "Take a deep breath, bite into the cloth and close your eyes. Brother Shah has tried to avoid it as carefully as possible, but this pain is still difficult for the elves to bear very much." "Ah ah ah. Ah 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 ah." The mournful cries of the elves echoed through the cave, but soon quieted down. The arrow was removed, and the wound was disinfected and wrapped with herbs. Because her thigh was injured, her movements became slow. "But don't underestimate the elves, my hands can still fight." Afterwards, the group continued to delve deeper into the cave and encountered a missing aristocratic girl in an extremely spacious area. There was nothing, just lying on an altar with a few people looking through it. She was found to have various wounds on her body, lying on it with her eyes closed and hair disheveled. Her breathing was very weak, but she still couldn't conceal her beauty. She was still alive but fell into a coma. Gusha said, "Look again and see if you have hidden Goblin and the survivors." The various eerie and peculiar booths in the exhibition hall attracted everyone's attention, with various skeletons and complex and eerie patterns covering this cave. This should be the place of some evil god, the careful little priest noticed. There is a strange totem imprint behind the neck of this noble girl. Picking up the object that caused the wound from the ground, the goblin killer studied it and said, "It doesn't seem like this is Goblin's totem." Lizard Monk. It is the god of Goblin, a symbol of some external deity, from the place of Goblin. What is there to use miraculous magic to treat goblins and educate them to learn various techniques and combat methods? The situation seems to be getting more and more complicated, as some intelligent thing leads Goblin to plunder villages everywhere. Treat the wounds of Goblin and attack the cult followers of humanity. I can't believe that there are deities worshipped in Goblin, and even the wisdom of a commander. He is an extremely special and difficult to deal with in Goblin. The Goblin Paladin. Gusha. An existence that is even more eerie and intelligent than King Goblin, and has never been seen before. An ominous sense of fear enveloped everyone, and a strange existence different from traditional Goblin appeared. The crowd conducted a brief inspection and found that there was also a long-haired elf girl still alive. The two young girls were rescued and the unconscious aristocratic girl fell into a coma. In my sleep, I recalled the past of their team. Chapter 08. Goblin Killer. Adventurer Squad Annihilation Event. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A month ago, a noble girl sat by a warm fireplace discussing a battle plan against Goblin with the team. Goblin will attack the village because their food reserves are insufficient. As long as we surround this place, they will lose patience and rush out over time. We can easily get rid of these goblins then. You truly deserve to be the captain, you are indeed smart. At that time, everyone was extremely confident and believed that it was a good idea to solve it easily. But one of the most experienced adventurers believes that when a blizzard approaches, we won't be able to hold on. The magician, on the other hand, had a favorable impression of the noble girl and expressed his willingness to listen to her. After all, the command of the entire team is in her hands. With great enthusiasm, they followed their original plan and blocked the cave with sturdy wood. Soon their team saw Goblin and struggled to get out of the cage. A few goblins were easily dealt with by them, but they didn't know that what misled their prediction was the cannon fodder sent by goblins. For Goblin, dead teammates do not evoke their emotions, but they will desperately seek revenge and retaliate against adventurers and humans. And pass on the surviving experiences to their next generation. But the team outside the cave didn't know they had fallen into a trap. This discovery inspired the courage and confidence of this group of newcomers. As expected, it's just a matter of time. Afterwards, everyone stayed here dead and continued to wait for other goblins to appear. But as time went on, Goblin never appeared again. I didn't see Goblin today either. They haven't noticed anything wrong after staying for almost a week. However, as they had plenty of food, they never thought of any other reason, thinking that Goblin was afraid they wouldn't come out. And they underestimated the wisdom of goblins. For some unknown reason, there is still a cognitive gap between them. After all, it's just a goblin without wisdom. Anyway, they will come out soon, just keep waiting. Afterwards, due to water sources, they even started eating snow, causing some team members to have stomach problems, and at the same time, the dry firewood used for ignition was almost burned. A strange atmosphere appeared in their team. If our situation is not good either, Goblin should not be doing well now. However, as the captain of the team, the noblewoman is still highly trusted by the team members. Everyone once again listened to her orders and continued to stay behind. Afterwards, the situation worsened and their food began to become scarce. Due to food reasons, disharmonious factors began to emerge, and the team began to argue. A team member proposed to evacuate and believed that their current physical strength might be killed by Goblin. However, this noblewoman felt ashamed if she fled without even fighting a mere goblin. Due to being mocked by the young lady, everyone also became angry and still did not choose to evacuate, continuing to squat. Is it okay if we are ridiculed as adventurers who run away from goblins? However, food and wood are still decreasing, and even the surrounding prey cannot be found. The situation of the adventurers is getting worse and worse. With a team of 5 people relying solely on a rabbit that was finally hunted, there is not enough division. Afterwards, the team proposed to return to the village again to purchase food and asked the noblewoman who had not made much effort during this period to personally purchase it. Although everyone was dissatisfied with her, they still gave her respect and handed over the fate and future of this team to her. At this time, they are very hungry, tired, and even weak. If they cannot receive timely supplies, it may be more or less unlucky. Unlike her energetic demeanor when she first set off, this noblewoman once again came to this village. Adventurers, you are back. May I ask, what was the result of the battle? Well, actually we haven't. How could this be? As the village chief, he sighed. After all, everyone was very worried because of Goblin's situation. Faced with blameless villagers, the noble girl lowered her head high and begged the villagers to give them some food. After all, they can't hold on anymore, and their teammates still rely on themselves. However, the villagers have already encountered food problems due to goblins. For the adventurers' request, they gritted their teeth and took out some food and dry firewood to give to the adventurer. The girl was panting and dragging a heavy object up the mountain slope, and fell to the ground because she was too tired. How could this be? How could it be because of the mere goblin? Afterwards, the girl temporarily set up a tent in a jungle to rest for a while. But she forgot that her teammates were still waiting for her to come back, but they couldn't wait anymore. Because Goblin has already surrounded them, what will be waiting for them? Yes, massacre. A group of goblins with weapons in good condition surrounded the weak and extremely dangerous adventurer team. This time they became lambs waiting to be slaughtered because they were too hungry to even fight Goblin. The shortest elf among them was killed on the spot. For Goblin, the weak mother was not worth breeding, so this poor elf was able to be killed and divided. The body is just their food, and take her head away. Human males and dwarves are even less worth staying, even though they are stronger. They are also stronger, but now they don't have much strength at all, let alone being choked by an arrow just as the mage was about to chant a spell. Goblin easily defeated these 2 people and killed them, leaving behind the only beautiful elf girl with long hair. After all, for goblins, elves have strong vitality and are very attractive, which can bring more offspring to goblins. Then, following the scent, the goblins surrounded the noble girl sleeping in the forest. Upon hearing the commotion, the girl was very alert and picked up her weapon. Suddenly, a flesh and blood blurred object was thrown in front of her. It was an ear of the elf teammate. She was frightened and wanted to pull out her weapon, but for some reason, her sword was frozen by ice. Even if I try my best to pull it out, I won't move at all. Surrounded by Goblin's strange laughter, he gradually approached her with ill intentions. Actually, Goblin had already discovered her in the forest and had a playful attitude towards her. I poured some water onto her weapon. In such a cold situation, this sword has lost its effectiveness, and the weapon that cannot be pulled out is just a beautiful decoration. The girl was hopelessly knocked down by the rushing goblins, and then they giggled and tore at her clothes. The girl struggled and resisted desperately. Let go of me, these beasts. Damn Goblin. Just Goblin, how could that be? In her sight, there was a goblin holding the head of her teammate. He burst out laughing and danced a strange dance, mocking the foolishness of this new adventure team. The noble girl finally broke free and wanted to escape. And nearby came the weak cry of the elf girl, "Run away. Please, everyone is gone. Run away. We were deceived by Goblin. These guys are not beasts without intelligence at all." But soon the elves turned into struggling cries, and the noble girls were knocked down by Goblin due to distraction, so their team was defeated by Goblin. The only Goblin they underestimated. The mournful voices of the young girls spread into the forest and were soon covered by the wind and snow. Their campsite, with faint flames, also blown out by the wind and snow. Afterwards, the two were captured by Goblin and their weapons were looted clean. The poor girls were taken to the dark, damp, and dim cave of Goblin. Endless pain and torment await them, and in despair she attempts to pray to the gods. "Oh my God, please save me. Let me get rid of these beasts. Whoever it is, help me." However, the cruel reality is that a large number of goblins are about to enjoy them. In this way, the new team was basically wiped out and became Goblin's toy. The overconfident rookie team encountered a more cunning Goblin. And the outcome was predetermined. Goblin. Just Goblin. Ah 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 ah. The girl woke up from her dream, took a deep breath, and saw the very famous man. The Goblin Killer. "It's okay, it's over. You are very safe now." The Goblin Assassin sat quietly by the girl's bed, guarding the suffering girl and thoughtfully lighting a fire. He fully understood the experiences of the young girl, unlike the Saint of the Sword, who was still shrouded in Goblin's fear. He chose to use this fear in exchange for strength and anger, as well as a calm and wise mind. The noble girl finally fell asleep again, but this time she wouldn't be troubled by nightmares. Because the Goblin Killer was right beside her, so there was no need to be afraid of Goblin with him. The man silently flipped over the stove and said this sentence as he watched the burning flames. "Goblin, it must be eliminated." Chapter 09. The Goblin Killer. The Goblin Paladin beyond the original plot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On a refreshing morning, the small bag carried by the noble girl and her broken armor were gently placed in front of the table. This girl has regained consciousness wearing tight-fitting pajamas borrowed from villagers. I saw the Goblin Assassin still guarding the side. With a bewildered expression on her face, she asked her companions. The Goblin Assassin replied as he allowed the carbon fire to reignite. "All but the elves are dead." The girl seemed to want to say something, but didn't say anything. "This is it, I have something to ask. If you don't want to say it, you can skip it. Is that all right?" The Goblin Assassin is a very thoughtful girl who asks questions. "What did you do? I thought we would succeed in the food shortage war. It's like this. I originally wanted to adventure and level up with everyone, but I thought it would be very smooth in the future. It's like this kind of thing sometimes happens." The man turned around and left when he saw that the girl had returned to normal. The girl's faint voice stopped him. "Are you the Goblin Killer with this equipment?" "Indeed, I am often referred to as such by people." The girl wanted to get up, but felt a pain. She touched the wound on her neck and muttered to herself, "Goblin. Killer, the goblin killing team at the dinner table is considering the investigation results. Is the god of sensation the same as what we call the god of wisdom? Unlike our belief in the god of wisdom, the god of wisdom guides those who want to understand the truth of events and gives them wisdom. And the god of wisdom firmly believes that all suffering and twists and turns are necessary processes for acquiring knowledge, which is very important. But the god of sensation will impart all kinds of knowledge to any race without distinction. So the result is the demonic and crooked ways that destroy the world, and even the emergence of heretics who follow the outside world. For them, no matter how much sacrifice is made, the god of sensation will not be interested. But no matter what the cause is, the problem is that Goblin has become even more dangerous. Their stronghold must be elsewhere, this is just a place for worship. As he spoke, the goblin assassin displayed a map of the border village, as if there was a huge relic on the higher mountain. It seems like a battle fortress used by dwarves in the mythological period, which means it would be very difficult for us to break through head-on. Is there any way? Perhaps there is. At this moment, the noble girl pondered something in her room and mustered the courage to take out her weapon and walk downstairs. She heard everyone discussing and said she also wanted to go. Then the elves refused her. After all, their mission was to rescue the girl. The female swordsman in the team answered, "You should go back and report your safety to them first." "No, I must take it back, take back everything I lost." Looking at the girl's firm gaze, everyone still opposed. Yes, yes. For example, what if she dies? As an adventurer who cannot seek revenge for his companions, how can he look back? But wouldn't you also die? If you're not careful, not only you, but also all of us could potentially die. After all, life will eventually be lost. As elves with long lives, you should know better than anyone else. That's right, that's right. The goblin assassin, who is the backbone of the team, spoke up, "I am neither your parents nor your friend. But since you have a request from us, no matter what you want to do, you should be very clear about the consequences you may face." "Yes, I understand." The girl drew her short knife and cut off her golden hair. As if isolated from the past, she became brave and let go of some kind of consciousness. Because she was penniless, she entrusted her hair as a commission. "As a close relative, I am very familiar with the belongings of my relatives, which is probably equivalent to leaving a memory for my family." Since that's the case, everyone agrees. Since everyone is like this, then I agree. Yes, everyone answered together. Okay, we should go and fight against Goblin. In the early morning, the crowd dressed themselves up as eerie cultists. All the beautiful girls in the team were treated as tribute and locked up in cages as part of the plan, and they had to infiltrate the enemy camp. The elf, wearing a tattered burlap to cover his body, let out a puzzled sound. "Why are we treated as spoils of war? After all, we are all males, so it's definitely not possible." "Really, these stupid words keep arguing, Your Highness." The goblin killer painted his armor black and painted it with eerie red patterns, making it look both cool and mysterious. "Anyway, they are going to become tribute to the god of wisdom outside the realm. Let them make a fuss again. Let them go." The crowd cheerfully advanced towards the eerie castle, wearing too thin clothes. The noble girl trembled with coldness, and the little priest leaned back to back, very close to her. Brother was stopped by the assassin and gave them a magical ring to breathe in the water. It can withstand some of the cold and cover the cage with cloth to prevent the cold wind from blowing into the cage. Under the guise of a cult, the heavily guarded castle gate was indeed opened. Many goblins walked out, led by a goblin shaman. They showed an evil smile and licked their lips, as if very satisfied with the girl they sent. And carefully scrutinized these beautiful girls, as if they were delicious dishes. Goblinza was wearing the blue robe of his former aristocratic teenage companions. She fell into the fear of the past and was extremely angry. Afterwards, Goblin actually said that in order to prevent the offerings from escaping, he would break their hands and feet and then take them to the dungeon. Everyone stepped into this heavily guarded castle, where various goblins were gathered. And it has a variety of weapons, equipment, and order, and even Goblin grabbed the cage out of desire and wanted to catch the girl in the cage. The frightened girl tightly hugged the nobleman, while Goblin obeyed the command and did not do anything more. In the pitch-black and dark dungeon, they saw many skinny girls imprisoned here, some of whom had already died and turned into bones. There are many adventurers nearby, most of whom are innocent girls missing from the village. They were subjected to various unimaginable things. But everyone just continued to move forward in silence, before it was time to take action. Some of them have become numb, while others are crying softly. As they delve deeper and farther away, the environment becomes increasingly harsh, emitting a foul odor and mosquitoes dancing. The disgusting smell made several girls in the cage show disgusted expressions and cover their mouths and noses. Then the goblin shaman drooled and caught the cutest and petite little priest among them. And with a wicked smile, he grabbed her hair and dragged it to the edge of the cage. The girl shed tears due to pain and wanted to struggle, while Goblin was very excited. "Do we start with this girl first?" As he spoke, the lizard man opened the cage and pounced on the aristocratic girl who was already full of anger towards Goblin, tightly gripping its neck. In pain, Goblin drew his short knife and swung it desperately to stab the girl. Another guarded goblin realized that the situation was not right and wanted to report it to the police. He was stabbed by the goblin assassin with a dazzling blow, and the goblin assassin, who was repairing the blow, shot him in the head. The girl grabbed Goblin tightly and vigorously waved her fists, soaking her hands in blood, leaving her flesh and blood blurred. As if tirelessly venting her anger. The girl lost her sanity and still wanted to attack Goblin, who had already lost her life. The elf girl quickly grabbed her, after all, her condition was very wrong. The girl struggled desperately and shouted angrily, "Goblin must die. Let go of me now. Calm down and treat the wound quickly." When the little priest realized it, he realized that his face seemed to have been scratched. He first treated his wound before giving her treatment. Otherwise, her hands will rot and leave scars. "There are still prisoners alive, help me check the situation. Why bring her in? It's clearly so dangerous here." The little priest helped the slightly calmed aristocratic girl to one corner. "Because it's necessary. After all, if we force ourselves in, we either win or lose." "I didn't mean that. I understand her, I think I can understand her." Afterwards, the group exchanged their equipment and weapons in the dungeon. "Sorry, I was emotional just now. This is very normal, it can happen any time. You have it too, she has it too, even I have it. Everyone must first solve Goblin. After all, the prisoners in prison are still very safe now, but once the battle occurs, they can no longer care about them." The crowd left the dungeon and discussed the battle strategy. "What material is your sword made of?" "So, it's worth your attention. It is made of very precious metal, and that sword is very sharp and powerful." "I see. Let's go to the armory here first. Can you confirm how many times our weapons and miracle magic can still be used?" "Her strongest move must be preserved, so we only have 10 miraculous spells." Everyone delved deep into the arsenal in the dark bunker. This place is filled with armor, swords, and bows and crossbows. The style here is really unique, after all, it is the equipment of the dwarves. Can goblins forge weapons? Can they already threaten the regular human army? As if talking to himself, the goblin assassin made a very dangerous guess. "Anyway, take some weapons first and destroy this arsenal. This cuts off the enemy's source of weapons and equipment." Chapter 10. The battle between the Goblin Killer and the Goblin Paladin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. And on the open space outside the castle, goblin musicians played unique music. Thousands of goblins appeared here, waving weapons and feeling incredibly excited and arrogant. A goblin paladin with an extremely tall and strong figure, dressed in battle armor, walked towards the central battle platform amidst the cheers of the goblins and sat on the throne. It stood tall in the center, facing numerous goblins with a big wave of its hand. Goblins stopped cheering like an army and stood to watch. Damn it, we made a wrong prediction. This is Goblin's coronation ceremony. How could it be? The coronation ceremony requires a clergyman to be worshipped. For some unknown reason, the girl suddenly screamed in great pain. Because she had just been rescued from goblins' hands, seeing so many goblins seem to bring back memories, their ugly and lewd faces made the girl unable to control her rationality and scream in pain loudly. The wound behind her emitted a strange red light, making it impossible for the girl to control her pain and sink into a cave, filled with tragic memories. Such a big commotion naturally caught the attention of all goblins on the field. The goblin stood up and met the goblin assassin standing high up. However, with just a few seconds of pause, the two seemed to have engaged in some eerie battle. The goblin paladin stared arrogantly at this group of adventurers, and under its command, the goblins collectively drew their bows and aimed at them. Arrow rain attacked their location, not only with sturdy iron swords, but also with unique guillotine swords, making their technology and strategy more advanced. The girl, on the other hand, covered her head in painful self-blame, and because of her own mistake, once again put the team in danger. It's all because of me. I must retrieve my sword. It's all because of me. That. Goblin. Dad, Mom, I can't do it anymore. I can't stand it anymore. The girl was shrouded in self-blame and fear, falling into despair. But the words of the goblin assassin were like a stimulant, calming the girl down. I see, I will help you retrieve your sword. I will also kill the paladin and all the goblins. But killing one, two, a nest, or even a bunker is meaningless. All goblins have to die. So don't cry anymore, we're going to fight. Above the towering city tower, hundreds or even thousands of goblins swarmed in, under the command of the paladin goblins. Goblin archers, goblin assault fighters, fully armed, attacked them. The goblin assassin bravely charged towards them alone. First of all, it's the first one, and then there's the second one. They evacuated at an extremely fast pace, while countless goblins chased behind them. How many goblins are there? In short, the quantity is very large. Great, don't turn back and continue running. The goblin killer dropped a specially made bottle of oil. The little priest was in the middle of the queue and used a divine tool to strike the goblin approaching her. And holding a torch, the noblewoman at the end of the team ran out of breath. Even when she turned around, a goblin had already caught up with her and smelled the scent in Goblin's mouth. She was even more afraid to turn back and continue running away. She was frightened and found herself getting further and further away from the team, gradually unable to keep up. An invisible fear caught up with her, and the girl became increasingly frightened and breathless, as if she was about to fall into darkness the next second. But suddenly a pair of warm little hands grabbed her. It was the little priest, and she found that the noble girl couldn't catch up. She quickly grabbed her and ran away together. Meanwhile, the elves, dwarves, and she broke into a room where various types of food were displayed. Attack castles in war. The first move is a water attack, and the other move is a food shortage war. Then they set fire and destroyed the warehouse, using explosions to destroy the items piled up here. And the goblin assassin had their first encounter with this well-equipped goblin paladin. The opponent's combat ability and reaction speed are exceptionally strong, and because they held the aluminum sword of the noblewoman, they easily cut off the sword in the hands of the goblin assassin with a single blow. Not to mention its extraordinary height and speed, even if the sword broke, the goblin killer did not choose to give up, but instead continued to fight against it. Although the other party is very fast, the goblin killer is not a vegetarian either. Under the teacher's education, his dynamic vision was very good and caught up with its speed. In the cross-combat between the two, sparks of collision between swords were generated. The noble girl released a lightning strike and hit a patch of goblins, but the goblin paladin was immune to damage and easily knocked away the weapon of the goblin killer. More goblins rushed out from behind, like a constant stream of insects. The goblin's killer quickly jumped off the city wall with two girls. Many goblins fell down due to their fast speed. But the goblin assassin is wrapped in sturdy hemp rope. After all, the necessary equipment for adventurers is essential. It could serve as an emergency escape rope, and then the three of them safely reached the ground and fled, while the castle gate opened and countless goblins swarmed out. And the elves escaped from the tunnel with the surviving prisoners. After all, goblins' nests were scattered here, avoiding direct conflict with a large group of goblins. Afterwards, the dwarf thoughtfully handed the goblin killer a new short sword. The group successfully met, and at this moment, the sun slowly rose, illuminating the continent. Everyone was running rapidly on the snow, while behind them were a large number of goblins relentlessly chasing after them, while the manager's sister was constantly killing goblins at the end of the team, gradually approaching them. Her leg injury healed, and she continued to jump quickly and flexibly in the snow, while behind her were patches of goblins a few hundred meters away. The paladin goblin commanded the goblins to gradually form a siege and prepare to sandwich them. The elf girl arched and aimed at the goblin paladin running at the front. It is incredible that even Goblin was willing to sacrifice his own life to protect this paladin goblin and block this fatal blow. It's incredible that they have developed loyalty. Even Goblin, using something similar to a sled, accelerated his speed and chased after him. And he fiercely bit the goblin assassin, dwarves, and elves, but fortunately, the teams cooperated with each other and covered for each other to catch and kill, gradually approaching their goblin. But they couldn't stop, while Goblin's speed was getting faster and faster. Continuously running and killing goblins is a test of their physical and mental strength. Not to mention that they are wearing sturdy armor and wielding weapons to compete in an endurance race against the lightly armored goblin. Some of the goblins even jumped onto the goblin's killer, attempting to stab him with a small knife, but fortunately the armor was very strong and protected him. Afterwards, at the cliff, the goblin assassin decided to step back and asked the team members to leave as soon as possible. "I'll block Goblin, you guys go first. Is it really okay? Please believe me, I have a plan."